Hello, hello! Nice to see you all today. I'm Andy and welcome to my tutorial! Today I'll be showing you guys how to get started with making your live 2D model, like this. Today I'll be using my Reevehs model. She is an ube swirl bun bunny and she's really cute. So yeah, if you want to know how to get started making your own model just like this, continue watching. Okay, so we're in Clip Studio Paint. This is the program that I use to illustrate, and not only to illustrate, but to also make my live 2D models. And so you just really need to use any digital program that you're comfortable with, as long as you can export to a .psd file. And that is the file that Live2D reads in order to import your art mesh. What I do is I apply a symmetry ruler to the blank page. So like, let's say this is a blank page and I'd make a new layer. How do we add the symmetry ruler? So the symmetry ruler is, well, my model's kind of in the way, but it's this little triangle over here. So you're gonna click on that and then you're gonna have symmetrical ruler right there. So then you'll hold shift and then you'll click down and then you'll have a vertical symmetrical ruler. It's not in the center. So when you're doing live 2D rigging, if you want to mirror or reflect anything, you're going to want to make sure that your model is dead center. So let's center this. To do that, we're going to click over here on operation and then make sure you have object selected. Click on the ruler with this object tool, and then over here you will see in the tool properties, center X, Y, and angle. We're going to want to center X. And so to do this, we're going to want to see what the center of our canvas would be. So my canvas is, in pixels, 3300. So if I divide that by 2, that'll be 1650. So over here, we'll change this to 1650. And ta-da! It is now in the center, and you can get to sketching, and then I will just copy and paste this ruler onto every single layer that needs symmetry, so then I can just do, you know, half the work. So, when I'm doing my rough sketch for Live 2D, you don't have to think about segmenting them into different layers just yet. You'll just be able to sketch and design to your heart's content. You don't have to worry about, separating them and cutting them up just yet. But what you do have to think about is what's going to be showing underneath different items. So, for example, like, will the ears be shown behind the bangs? Will the leaves be overlapping with the shoulders? So just think about all those things. When I'm designing a model, this is what I like to keep in mind, and this is the mindset I like to keep myself in. How will this model look from the shoulder up? I don't want the top half to be boring. I don't want all the exciting stuff to be here on the legs. So I want to make the top part just exciting or just interesting to look at. I'll also think about what elements do I want to see moving around when the model is moving, what physics I want to apply as well. So, for example, with Reevehs right now, the model I'm using here, I have her hair bouncing everywhere, and it's a little, her physics are a little off. I need to edit that a bit, but she is my first model, and I'm still really proud of her. Creme is going to be her sister model. So yeah, you know, I'm just learning along the way, and yeah, you know, practice makes perfect. I also like to think about what features will pop when they're scaled down, because when you're streaming, you're going to have to realize that your model isn't going to be its full model. You're going to be zoomed out a lot. So you want to make sure that design elements really pop from a distance. And when you're doing digital art, we really like to get lost in the sauce of the details when we're zooming in. So don't do that. Keep in mind things that just always keep zooming out, always keep looking at your model and seeing how it looks. So after I do my rough sketch, I like to do some rough colors. So I always duplicate the layer, and then I set it to multiply with the layer styles. And then I just do a layer where I just do all the colors at once. This is how I test out different color palettes, and this is so I can just get the whole color story and feel of the character. So yeah, after I do that, we'll hide that, and then I'll show you how I did the line art. So if you actually want to see a more in-depth just look at how I did this, I will link the full speed paint of Creme. So if you want to just sit back and see how I did things, in what order I did things, that's probably a good video to look at. Here, I'll probably just tell you like mindsets to keep in mind, and just mindsets to keep in mind. I'll tell you just things that you have to think about while you're doing, and how to break it down so it's a lot easier while you're doing this, because I know that having all these layers can be pretty intimidating and a little scary, but you know, it's fine. So keep in mind that you will have a lot of layers while you're working on this. Like, a lot of layers while you're working on this. But don't worry, it'll be fine. You just have to keep in mind a lot of the, you just gotta keep in the headspace of breaking everything up and remembering what's going to be moving and what's gonna be its own thing. So since pretty much everything's going to be like its own individual part, I like to pre-set up a bunch of layers by just going, you know, oh, this will be the mouth, this will be the head, this will be the eyes and stuff like that. You know, just, I like to pre-plan my layers and then I'll add along the way as I do. So I'll show you some of my folders. They're kind of scary, so when I open them, oh, there's so many layers. Where do I get started? What do these all mean? I'll tell you what they mean. Okay, I have them set up with different parts. So I have the dress, I have different layers of the dress. Let's actually hide the sketch layer so you can actually see this better. So ta-da, doesn't that look so much cleaner? So now we have this. So as you can see, I have overlapping items. You can see the neck through the head, you can see the skull through the bangs, the ear through the bangs, you can see leaves through leaves, legs through the dress, and that's because all of these will be rigged as their own meshes in Live2D. So I always make sure that if I want things to move by themselves, I separate them out. The arms as well, especially, even though they look like they're one unit, they are also separated if I can find the layer and show you. As you can see, I have them separated into forearms and shoulders, and the shoulders line up with the neck. And the neck is its own thing as well. So yeah, here's how I break up the eyes. The eyes seem complicated, but you just have to remember what you'll be moving when you're rigging. If you're not the rigger and you're sending things off to your rigger, you don't want to send them eyes all on one layer. You want to break them up so you can get nice little blinking animations. You know, you can wink and then So I have the top eyelashes. Some artists like to segment the top lashes. So over here, you'll actually have, I have a whole just lash. But you can also break the lashes up from the lash line. For example, Reevehs model actually has the lashes broken up from the lash line. But with Creme, I'm just testing some stuff out. So with her model, I kept them all on the same layer. And yeah, so we have the sides, we have the pupil, we have the bottom lash line, we have the iris, the big boys. And yeah, and then once you have all your lines segmented out, we can get to coloring. So I have all my lines sectioned out, and I just want to talk about overlapping features. So here's a good example to show you why we draw negative space. So with Reevehs, when she turns left and right, her hair bounces up and down, her hair swishes, and you'll see that there are some parts that would probably be negative space and transparent pixels if I didn't color all the way through, if I didn't put all the lines in all the way through. So with my leaves, I have this top layer of leaves, I also have this bottom layer of leaves, so that when they have physics and they're rigged and they're going swish, 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 they are moving independently. And so that means I can apply different physics settings to them so they can look more dynamic as they're moving. So here's the top, here's the bottom, and then when we color, I do the same thing. So color the top and keep it on top of the bottom, color the bottom, keep it below the top. And as you can see, I also have two different colors as well to just add more dynamic and depth to the model. So when you're coloring stuff like the head, you're gonna wanna make sure that shadows and blush and highlight, that's all on its own separate layer, because when things are moving, you're gonna wanna move them differently. So you can just, you know, make things more 3D. So here we have shadow here, we have a shadow here, we have extra blush here, we have extra highlights here, so that when my character's moving, I can then edit these individual parts. I don't have to worry about them later. This model is already fully colored and stuff, so what I would do after coloring this file would be to actually save it as a .psd. So then not only do I have a backup for my PSD file in the form of my Clip Studio Paint file, I can just go back and edit this and still have all my nice rulers and stuff later on. because when you export it as a PSD, you won't have your rulers anymore. I'm sorry, but here. So the way that I export things as a PSD is I go to File, Save Duplicate, and then I go to .psd. I export it from here. I already have the PSD open, so we're just gonna go over here, and this is the easy part. So once again, we're going to have even more layers, but it's not as scary. It's fine. It's actually kind of fun to do this. So what you're going to do is you're going to just essentially just select things on one side, just layer by layer, and then you're going to cut and paste them and then label them according to which side it is. So every piece that has its own mirror image, so for example, every left and right piece, so the ears, the eyes, the arms, the legs, those are going to go on their own layers because you're going to separate them in Live2D. So here I have the left shoulder, the left forearm, the right forearm. I have the hair all on one layer. I have the mass of hair, and then I have the little fluffy parts of the hair. I also have the bangs separated as well. They're on their own layer here. Doot, doot. I have the dress on its own layer, and as you can see, the line art and the colors are merged. This will depend on your rigger, whether or not they would like the lines to be separated or merged with the colors. I like to have the lines merged with the colors on my model. Don't ask me why, it's just a preference. But some riggers would prefer if your lines were separated, so just keep that in mind. Always ask the rigger, and if you're not the one who did the art and you're just talking between your artist and your rigger, always just keep the communication open and just see what their preference is. If you want to have expressions such as this, such as this, such as this, or such as this is where I would put them. I make a folder called expressions, and then I make the overlays that'll be toggles later on. So we have sparkles here, we have some angry, we have more for the angry, we have Crem's version of this, and then we'll have some tears, which is her version of this. And yeah, and then I also have like a little goofy one that I'm gonna figure out later on. And this is a beginner mistake that I made while making Reevehs. I didn't realize how to label left and right. I was just doing my own left, my own right. But when you're doing your model, you have to think about their right and their left. So the left eyelash, you would think probably, oh, you know what? You can't see the eyelash. Let's do the arms. You would probably think the left shoulder would be over here, but her left shoulder would actually be our right. And then our right would be her left. So just keep that in mind when you're breaking it up, because all of these layers could be renamed when you import them into Live2D, but to just make your life or anybody else's life easier, just name them nicely here. Because it's easy here. In Live2D, there's so many things to keep track of, and so being organized the whole way around, it's fine. So when you're separating things out, you always want to make sure that you're thinking about what's going to be moving and what's going to have its own like physics and stuff like that. So with the eye especially, with Creme, I actually want to experiment more with eye physics, so the way that I broke it up was a little different. With Reevehs, her highlights are all on one layer, but with Creme, I broke up her highlights, so there's a bunch of them. So if we go over here, you can actually see I put them in their own folder for shines. These are the eye shines. So I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. So there's a bunch, but they're all going to be moving on their own. Anyway, so they're all going to be individual components that are moving on their own with their own physics, and that's why I split them up. Yeah. Yeah. So that's it for the Clip Studio Paint part, or the illustration part of making your Live2D model. I will link to the time lapse of Creme's like speed paint, so if you wanted to just sit back and watch that for a bit and see my process for how I brought her to life there, that'll be in the description down below. And yeah, and that concludes the Clip Studio Paint part and the drawing part and the cutting up part of making your own Live2D model for your future VTubing dreams and ambitions. If you liked today's video, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and always remember to back up and save your files. Back up and save your files, or I will eat them and punish them to make sure you learn your lesson on saving your files. Bye, everybody! Bye!